The challenge. The Celestial Congress had convened for the first time in 3 solar cycles, and the grand amphitheater of Station Empyrean hummed with the presence of 47 species. Commander Zephania Cross of the Terran Diplomatic Corps sat in the human delegation's box, her fingers drumming against the armrest as she watched the Krevdar ambassador rise to speak. The Krevdar were masters of gravitational technology, their civilization built on the manipulation of spacetime itself. Ambassador Thexvalin's crystalline form refracted the chamber's light into dancing rainbows as he addressed the assembly. For millennia, we Krevdar have been the undisputed authorities on gravitational sciences, Thexvalin announced, his translated voice resonating through the chamber. Yet these humans claim they can match our expertise through what they call intuitive play. The last words dripped with disdain. Zephania's second-in-command, Lieutenant Darius Venn, leaned close. Here it comes. I propose a challenge, Thexvalin continued. The Great Gravitational Trial. Each species may send 1 representative to compete in a series of tests. The winner earns a seat on the newly formed Gravity Research Council and access to the Void Nexus laboratories. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Void Nexus was the most advanced physics research station in known space, floating in a manufactured pocket dimension. Access to its facilities was worth more than entire star systems. The Krevdar accept their own challenge naturally, Thexvalin said. Do the humans dare? All eyes turned to the Terran box. Zephania stood smoothly, her dark braids swaying. We accept. But we choose our own champion and our own methods. Primitive methods, no doubt, Thexvalin replied. You have 1 standard cycle to prepare. As the assembly dissolved into excited chatter, Darius grabbed Zephania's arm. Commander, we don't have anyone who can compete with Krevdar gravity tech. Their people are born manipulating spacetime. Zephania smiled. We're not going to compete with their technology, Darius. We're going to play. 12 hours later, Zephania stood in the observation deck of the human transport ship Wanderer's Echo, watching a young woman in zero gravity perform impossible acrobatics with nothing but 7 glass marbles. Lyra Kasdan was 23 years old, had failed out of 3 universities, and was currently ranked number 1 in the underground sport of marble drift. A game played in 0G where competitors used tiny gravitational fluctuations, air currents, and pure intuition to guide glass spheres through complex obstacle courses. The marbles spun around Lyra in patterns that seemed to defy physics, orbiting her hands, weaving between her fingers, spiraling in double helixes. She wasn't using any technology, just her understanding of momentum, rotation, and the subtle gravitational eddies that existed even in the best 0G environments. Miss Kasdan, Zephania called out. Lyra caught all 7 marbles in one hand without looking and flipped upright, magnetic boots clicking against the deck. Her hair was shaved on one side, the other side dyed in gradient blues. Commander Cross. Here to tell me this is crazy? Actually, I'm here to offer you a chance to humiliate the most arrogant species in the galaxy. Lyra's grin was infectious. I'm listening. Zephania explained the challenge. With each detail, Lyra's expression shifted from amusement to intense focus. When Zephania finished, Lyra was quiet for a long moment. They're going to use actual gravity manipulation, Lyra finally said. Devices, fields, technology that can bend spacetime. And you want me to compete with marbles? I want you to compete with understanding, Zephania corrected. The Krevdar manipulate gravity. Humans play with it. We learned by throwing rocks, skipping stones, playing jacks. We developed intuition for mass, momentum, and motion before we could write. That's our advantage. Lyra rolled 1 marble across her knuckles, and Zephania noticed it never quite moved the way physics predicted. Always with a slight curve, a tiny adjustment, as if Lyra could feel the invisible forces acting on it. What are the tests? Lyra asked. Unknown until we arrive. But they'll be designed to showcase Krevdar's superiority. Zephania paused. Their champion is Velkos, a gravitational physicist with 600 years of experience. He's never been beaten. 600 years of doing it the same way, Lyra mused. She looked at her marbles, then back at Zephania. When do we leave? 2 hours. I'll need to pack my collection. Lyra gestured to a case in the corner that held dozens of marbles of various sizes, materials, and densities. And I'll need access to any data you have on Krevdar gravitational patterns. Why? Lyra's smile was sharp. Because every game has rules, Commander. And every set of rules has exploits. They think we're going to try to match their power. She tossed a marble high, where it seemed to hang suspended for just a moment too long before dropping. We're going to show them that sometimes the smallest force, applied at exactly the right moment, beats raw power every time. Zephania felt a surge of hope. Welcome to the team, Miss Kasdan. Call me Lyra. And Commander? The young woman's eyes glinted with competitive fire. I don't lose at marble games. The arena. The Convergence Arena materialized in the void between stars, a structure constructed from hardened spacetime itself. Lyra pressed her face against the viewport of the Wanderer's echo, watching as the impossible architecture twisted through dimensions her eyes couldn't quite process. It's beautiful, she whispered. Beside her, Dr. Kalen Frost, the team's physicist, adjusted his interface glasses. It's a nightmare. That structure exists partially in 4 spatial dimensions. The Krevdar built it to showcase their mastery. He looked at Lyra with concern. Are you sure about this? Lyra spun one of her favorite marbles, a blue-green swirl called Earth's Eye, between her fingers. Dr. Frost, I've been playing marble games since I was 4 years old. I've played in rotating habitats, on ships under acceleration in magnetic fields, and once during a solar flare. I'm not scared of weird gravity. You should be, came a crystalline voice. The Krevdar champion, Velkos, had materialized in their observation lounge. His form was taller than Thexvalin's, with sharper angles that suggested predatory confidence. The crystalline being didn't walk so much as reality adjusted to place him where he wanted to be. The human competitor, Velkos observed, his translated voice carrying amusement. A child with toys. Lyra met his gaze steadily. And you're a crystal who's never played a game in his life. The temperature in the room dropped. Velkos leaned closer. I have manipulated gravitational fields for 6 centuries. I can create singularities with a thought, bend light around planets, and split atoms by adjusting local spacetime curvature. What can you do with your colored glass? Lyra smiled and flicked Earth's eye at Velkos. The marble flew straight for a meter, then curved impossibly around him in a spiral, picking up speed as it went. It orbited the Krevdar 3 times, each orbit at a different angle, before returning perfectly to Lyra's palm. I can play, she said simply. Velkos was silent for a long moment. You used the gravitational wake of my reality displacement. Clever. But cleverness won't save you in the arena. He vanished as suddenly as he'd appeared. Commander Zephania entered, having watched the exchange. You poked the bear. The crystal, Lyra corrected. And yeah, I did. Angry opponents make mistakes. Angry opponents also try harder. Good. I want him trying his hardest when I beat him. Lyra turned back to the viewport. What do we know about the tests? Kalen pulled up a holographic display. The arena has 3 chambers. Chamber 1 is called the Spiral. Competitors must guide objects through a rotating gravitational vortex. Chamber 2 is the Garden. Navigation through a field of microsingularities. Chamber 3. He hesitated. What? It's called the Mirror. No one knows what it entails. The Krevdar won't say. Lyra studied the schematics. The Spiral is about precision. The Garden is about awareness. The Mirror. She thought for a moment. It's about understanding. They saved it for last because it's their trump card. Zephania nodded. 47 species are watching this. The entire Congress. If you fail. Commander, Lyra interrupted gently, I've failed at a lot of things. 3 universities, remember? 2 relationships, 1 business venture, and countless job interviews. But I've never failed at understanding how things move. She held up Earth's eye. This marble has mass. It has momentum. It responds to forces. Those are universal truths. Whether you're human or Krevdar, you can't break physics. You can only work with it. The Krevdar bend physics, Kalen pointed out. No, Lyra said firmly. They use technology to create specific gravitational fields. But those fields still follow rules. Gravity still propagates at light speed. It still weakens with distance. It still interacts with mass predictably. She looked at both of them. They've forgotten that because they have machines that do the thinking for them. I've never had that luxury. I had to learn to feel it. An announcement chimed through the ship. All competitors to the transport shuttle. The trial begins in 1 hour. Lyra gathered her marbles, each one carefully selected. Different sizes, different densities, different materials. Glass, steel, tungsten, even one made from a fragment of meteorite. Each one was a tool and she'd spent years learning exactly how they moved. Lyra, Zephania said as the young woman headed for the door. Why did you really agree to this? The fame? The prize? Lyra paused. When I was 7, my dad took me to the gravity gardens on Mars. Those beautiful places where they let you float and play. I spent 6 hours just feeling how things moved. How a gentle push could send something spinning forever. How the smallest adjustment could change everything. She looked back at the commander. The scientist there laughed at me. Said I was just a kid playing. But I understood something that day that I don't think they ever did. Gravity isn't just a force to calculate. It's something you can dance with. And that's what you're going to do in there? Dance. Lyra's grin was fierce. I'm going to dance, Commander. And I'm going to make Velkos look like he's got 2 left feet. The shuttle ride to the arena was silent. Lyra sat across from Velkos and the other 45 competitors. Most were beings of pure energy or crystalline structures, species that had evolved or enhanced themselves specifically for gravitational manipulation. One competitor caught her eye, a youth Mari named Nexus, whose form constantly shifted like liquid mercury. Nexus nodded at her, the first sign of respect she'd received from any non-human competitor. You are the human? Nexus's voice was like wind chimes. Lyra Kasdan. I watched your approach with the Krevdar champion. Bold. Nexus flowed closer. My people have a saying, the rigid breaks, the flexible bends. You understand this? I do. Good. Perhaps humanity is not as foolish as they appear. Nexus retreated to their position. The arena loomed larger as they approached. Through the viewport, Lyra could see the first chamber, the spiral, a massive vortex of twisted spacetime that rotated in impossible directions. At its center was a point of absolute stillness. That was the target. Her heart raced, but her hands were steady. She'd been preparing for this her entire life, even if she hadn't known it. Every game of marbles in her childhood, every competition in 0G, every moment spent understanding the invisible forces that shaped motion. It had all been training. The shuttle docked. The competitors filed out into the preparation chamber. A holographic referee appeared, a neutral AI construct from the neutral consortium species. Competitors, welcome to the Convergence Arena, it announced. The rules are simple. Complete each challenge to the best of your ability. You may use any technology, ability, or technique at your disposal. The competitor who demonstrates the greatest mastery of gravitational principles will be declared the victor. Velkos's crystalline form glowed brighter. Around the chamber, species activated their various devices and enhancements. Lyra pulled out Earth's eye and began warming up, letting the marble roll across her knuckles, feeling its weight, its balance, its responsiveness. Competitors, take your positions. The spiral awaits. This was it. Lyra walked toward the chamber entrance, one human with 7 marbles against the universe's greatest masters of gravity. Time to show them what play could accomplish. The spiral. The first chamber opened like an iris, revealing a space that hurt to look at directly. The spiral was a gravitational vortex 60 meters across, its rotation creating visible distortions in spacetime. Streams of captured light spun through it like ribbons, and at its heart, barely visible, was the target, a sphere of perfect stillness marked with a glowing beacon. Each competitor would attempt to send an object from the outer platform to the central target. The object that reached the center with the greatest precision and control would win this round. Velkos went first naturally. The Krevdar champion materialized a small probe constructed from exotic matter. With a gesture he launched it into the spiral. The probe moved like it was on rails, its path perfectly calculated. Velkos was manipulating the local gravity fields around it, creating a bubble of normalized space that traveled through the chaos. The probe spiraled inward in a mathematically perfect logarithmic curve, reaching the target and stopping exactly at its center. The crowd of observers in the gallery, thousands of beings from across the galaxy, erupted in polite applause. The holographic display showed Velkos's precision, 99.97%. 17 other competitors followed. Most achieved between 60% and 80% precision. 3 failed entirely, their objects torn apart by the tidal forces. Nexus, the youth Mari, achieved an impressive 89% by constantly adjusting their object's density to match the changing gravitational gradient. Then it was Lyra's turn. She walked to the platform, Earth's eye in her hand. No technology. No gravitational manipulation devices. Just a glass marble and her understanding. The human is joking, yes? Someone in the gallery said, loud enough to carry. Lyra ignored them. She stood at the edge, studying the spiral. While the others had relied on instruments and calculations, she did something different. She watched. She observed how the light moved, where it accelerated, where it slowed. She noticed the patterns in the chaos, the rhythms in the rotation. The spiral wasn't random. It was complex, yes, but it followed rules. Every gravitational field did. She took Earth's eye and held it up, letting it catch the light. Then she closed her eyes and just felt. The pull of the spiral, the rotation of the arena, the subtle vibrations of the platform beneath her feet. Everything was information. Competitor Kazdan, you have 2 minutes remaining, the AI referee announced. Lyra opened her eyes. She'd seen the path, not calculated it, not measured it, but seen it. The way you see the arc of a thrown ball or know exactly where a dropped cup will land. She threw Earth's eye. The marble entered the spiral and immediately began to accelerate, spinning wildly. The crowd gasped. It looked like chaos, like she'd just thrown it blindly. But Lyra saw something else. The marble curved along the gravitational gradient, its spin creating gyroscopic stability. It whipped around the vortex once, twice, picking up speed. Then, at exactly the right moment, it caught a counter-rotating current. A spot where two gravitational streams met and created a temporary corridor of reduced force. Earth's eye surfed that corridor inward, still spinning, still accelerating. It spiraled closer to the center, moving faster than Vel'Kosa's probe had, but not fighting the forces, working with them. At the last moment, the marble hit a pocket of nearly flat spacetime near the target. All that rotational energy translated into forward momentum, and Earth's eye shot straight into the center of the beacon. The impact made the entire target ring like a bell. Silence filled the arena. The holographic display updated. 99.98%. Lyra had beaten Vel'Kos by 0.01%. The silence broke into chaos. Half the crowd was cheering, the other half arguing it was impossible. In the competitor's box, Vel'Kosa's crystalline form had gone dark. Commander Zephania was on her feet in the human gallery, shouting. Dr. Kalen was frantically checking his instruments, trying to figure out how Lyra had done it. Lyra just smiled and walked back to her position. As she passed Vel'Kos, she said quietly, "You drove your probe through the spiral. I let the spiral carry my marble. That's the difference between control and understanding." "One victory proves nothing," Vel'Kos said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. The AI referee appeared. Round 1. Kazdan Lyra, human. Precision score, 99.98%. Current standings, Kazdan, 1st. Vel'Kos, 2nd. Nexus, 3rd. Nexus flowed past Lyra and whispered, "The rigid breaks. Well demonstrated." The second chamber, the garden, was even more complex. It was a three-dimensional maze of microsingularities, tiny black holes suspended in a careful matrix. Each one was small enough not to be immediately lethal, but large enough to create vicious tidal forces. The path through them was constantly changing as the singularities orbited each other in an intricate dance. The challenge: navigate through the garden and collect 3 tokens placed at different depths, then exit. Fastest time with all 3 tokens won. This time Vel'Kos didn't go first. He watched as other competitors attempted the course. Most took between 12 and 20 minutes, carefully manipulating localized gravity fields to create safe passages. 2 competitors lost their collection devices to spaghettification. Nexus achieved an impressive 8 minutes by turning their mercury-like body into a thin stream that could flow between the danger zones. When Vel'Kosa's turn came, he created a gravitational shield around himself and simply walked through, warping space to redirect the singularity's pull. He collected all 3 tokens in 4 minutes and 37 seconds. It was brutally efficient and utterly dominant. The crowd cheered. This was the Krevdar mastery they'd expected. Then Lyra stepped up to the garden. She had 3 marbles for this run: Earth's Eye, a dense tungsten sphere she called Anchor, and a tiny glass marble she'd named Whisper. She also had a thin strand of spider silk monofilament from Earth, nearly invisible but incredibly strong. "What is the human doing?" someone asked as Lyra began tying the monofilament between the marbles. Dr. Kalen leaned forward in the gallery. "She's making a system," he breathed. "She's turning 3 separate objects into one interconnected unit." Lyra finished her construction, 3 marbles connected by precisely measured lengths of monofilament, forming a triangle. She held it up, testing the weight distribution, then nodded. She threw the entire assembly into the garden. What happened next would be analyzed by physicists for years afterward. The 3 marbles entered the field and immediately began responding to the microsingularities. But because they were connected, when one marble was pulled in one direction, it affected the others. The system began to rotate, with each marble taking turns being closest to each singularity. Lyra had created a gravitational pendulum that was constantly adjusting its own balance. The assembly swung through the first section of the garden like it was dancing, each marble pulling the others away from danger at exactly the right moment. When it reached the first token, Whisper, the lightest marble, swung wide and snagged it with the monofilament. The crowd was absolutely silent now, watching this impossible ballet of glass and string and physics. Lyra was reading the garden like sheet music, predicting where each microsingularity would pull, how the system would respond, and where it needed to go next. She made subtle adjustments by tugging on the monofilament she still held, adding tiny impulses that propagated through the entire system. The second token. Collected. The assembly spun deeper into the garden, moving faster now as it built momentum. This was the part that terrified everyone watching. If she miscalculated even slightly, the entire system would be ripped apart. But Lyra wasn't calculating. She was feeling. Every tug on the monofilament told her where the marbles were, how fast they were moving, what forces they were experiencing. It was like she was connected to them, an extension of her nervous system. The third token. Anchor, the heaviest marble, swung in a tight curve around a particularly vicious microsingularity and grabbed it. Now came the exit. The assembly was deep in the garden, surrounded by lethal tidal forces. Vel'Koz had simply powered through with his gravitational shield. Lyra did something different. She let go of the monofilament. The system was now completely autonomous, moving through the garden under its own momentum and the forces acting on it. And because Lyra had set it up perfectly, understanding exactly how it would respond to each pull and push, the assembly navigated its way out like a surfer riding a perfect wave. It emerged from the garden and landed softly on the exit platform. Total time, 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Lyra had cut Vel'Koz's time by nearly half and made it look like a game. The arena erupted. Species were shouting in languages Lyra couldn't understand, but she understood the tone: shock, awe, disbelief. In the competitors' area, Vel'Koz was completely motionless. Lyra collected her marbles and walked back. As she passed the Krevdar champion, she paused. 600 years of power, she said quietly. But how long since you played? Vel'Koz didn't respond. The scoreboard updated. Cast in Lyra Human Vel'Koz, Krevdar Nexus Youth Mari. One challenge remained, the mirror. The mirror. The preparation chamber felt different after the garden. Where before the other competitors had regarded Lyra with dismissal or amusement, now they watched her with calculation and, in some cases, fear. She was no longer a human child with toys, she was a threat. Vel'Koz had isolated himself in a corner, his crystalline form pulsing with dark light. Nexus flowed over to Lyra. The mirror, the youth Mari said quietly, is not like the other challenges. What do you mean? The other tests were public knowledge, designed to showcase Krevdar's superiority. But the mirror? Nexus's mercurial body rippled. My people have heard rumors. It is said to be a test not of controlling gravity, but of understanding what gravity truly is. Before Lyra could ask more, the chamber dimmed. The holographic referee appeared, but its form was different, more serious, almost solemn. Competitors, you have completed the trials of precision and navigation. You have demonstrated skill and capability. The mirror is different. The mirror shows truth. The wall ahead dissolved, revealing the third chamber. Lyra's breath caught. The mirror wasn't a room, it was a space of absolute darkness except for one thing: a perfect sphere of light at its center. The sphere wasn't glowing, it was pulling light itself into visibility, bending it around something that shouldn't exist in normal spacetime. The mirror, the referee continued, contains a naked singularity, a point of infinite curvature with no event horizon. It is raw gravity, unshielded and absolute. Your task is to approach as closely as you can without your object, or yourself should you choose to enter personally, being destroyed. Murmurs of shock rippled through the competitors. A naked singularity was theoretical, something that shouldn't exist according to most species' understanding of physics. The competitor who demonstrates the deepest understanding of gravitational forces by approaching closest to the singularity will win this round and the overall trial. Vel'Koz suddenly spoke, his voice resonating through the chamber. This is a Krevdar singularity. We created it for this purpose. No other species has the technology to manipulate such forces safely. Then you have nothing to fear from the competition, the referee replied neutrally. Competitors, you may begin when ready. Vel'Koz, as current second place, you will go first. The Krevdar champion floated forward. From his crystalline body, he manifested a probe, more sophisticated than anything he'd used before. It was surrounded by a shimmering field of countergravity, a bubble of artificial spacetime designed to resist the singularity's pull. Vel'Koos sent the probe into the mirror. It advanced steadily, the countergravity field flickering as it fought against the immense forces. The probe reached 20 meters from the singularity. 15. 10. At 8 meters, the field began to destabilize. At 7 meters, the probe started to elongate, caught between the gravitational gradient. Vel'Koos held it there for a long moment, demonstrating his control, then withdrew it. The crowd applauded. 7 meters from a naked singularity was an incredible achievement. Other competitors went. Most couldn't get within 20 meters. Nexus, using their unique form to distribute stress, reached 9 meters before retreating. Then it was Lyra's turn. She walked to the entrance of the mirror, holding a single marble. Not Earth's eye, she'd chosen a different one for this. It was called Void's Heart, a perfectly spherical ball of ultradense metal from a neutron star fragment. It was the heaviest thing she owned, barely the size of a pea but weighing nearly a kilogram. The human believes a simple metal sphere will succeed where technology fails? Someone scoffed. Lyra didn't hear them. She was staring at the naked singularity, and her mind was racing. Everything she'd learned in the first 2 challenges, everything she understood about gravity, it all crystallized in this moment. Vel'Koos had fought the singularity with countergravity. Everyone else had tried to resist it, to push back against its pull. But that wasn't how you won a game. You won by understanding the rules and playing within them. She looked at Dr. Kalin in the gallery. He was frantically scanning the singularity with his instruments, and she could see the realization dawning on his face. He understood what she was about to do. Lyra held up Void's Heart and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Gravity isn't something to fight. It's something to dance with. She threw the marble into the mirror. Void's Heart fell toward the singularity, accelerating rapidly. 20 meters. 15. 10. The crowd was silent, waiting for it to be destroyed. At 8 meters, something remarkable happened. Lyra had calculated, felt, the exact mass and velocity needed. Void's Heart entered a stable orbit around the naked singularity. It wasn't just approaching the singularity. It was circling it, held in perfect balance between its forward momentum and the gravitational pull. The marble became a satellite of the impossible object, whipping around it in a tight ellipse. The orbit decayed slowly as gravitational radiation bled energy away, but for 17 complete revolutions, Void's Heart danced with infinity. At its closest approach, it passed within 3.2 meters of the singularity. When it finally spiraled in close enough for the tidal forces to tear it apart, Lyra simply nodded. She'd known it would happen. She'd planned for it. The arena was absolutely silent. The holographic display showed her result, 3.2 meters. More than twice as close as Vel'Koos. But that wasn't what shocked everyone. What shocked them was the understanding that Lyra had demonstrated. She hadn't fought gravity, she'd worked with it. She'd turned the singularity's own pull into a tool, using orbital mechanics that any first-year physics student could understand but that every advanced species had overlooked in their quest for technological dominance. Commander Zephania was crying. Dr. Kalin was laughing in disbelief. In the human gallery, people were on their feet, screaming. In the competitors' area, Vel'Koos stood motionless for a long moment. Then, slowly, his crystalline form began to shift. He approached Lyra. "You have shown me something I forgot," he said quietly. "In 600 years of manipulating gravity with technology, I forgot what it was to understand it. You have my respect, human." Lyra smiled. "Thank you. And for what it's worth, your skill is incredible. Maybe the best approach is somewhere between your technology and my intuition." Vel'Koos actually laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Perhaps it is. Perhaps that is the real lesson of the mirror, to show us all what we've forgotten in our specialization." The referee appeared. The final scores are calculated. In third place, Nexus of the Youth Mari. In second place, Vel'Koos of the Krevthar. The pause was dramatic. In first place and winner of the Great Gravitational Trial, Lyra Kazdan of Humanity. The next hours were a blur. Lyra was swept into ceremonies, interviews, and formal recognitions. The human delegation was ecstatic. The Krevthar were gracious in defeat, though clearly stunned. Other species approached, wanting to understand how humanity had developed such intuitive grasp of physics. But through it all, Lyra kept thinking about what Vel'Koos had said. The technology and the intuition, maybe they needed each other. Late that night, after the ceremonies concluded, she found herself back aboard the Wanderer's Echo, staring out at the stars. Commander Zephania joined her. "You did it," the commander said. "You won us a seat on the Gravity Research Council and access to the Void Nexus." "I won a marble game," Lyra corrected with a smile. "A really complicated one, but still a marble game." "Is that all you think it was?" Lyra was quiet for a moment. "No. I think I showed everyone that there's value in play. In intuition. In understanding things not just through calculations and technology, but through feel and experience." She pulled out Earth's Eye, which had survived the spiral. "Every kid who's ever played marbles has learned something fundamental about physics. They just didn't know they were learning it. And now I'm going to the Void Nexus. And I'm going to show all those brilliant scientists that sometimes the best way to understand the universe is to play with it." Zephania smiled. "You're going to revolutionize gravitational research, aren't you?" "Maybe. Or maybe I'll just teach them all to play marbles." Lyra grinned. "Either way, it's going to be fun." The Void Nexus. 3 weeks after the trial, Lyra stood at the entrance to the Void Nexus, and even her experience at the Convergence Arena hadn't prepared her for this. The Nexus existed in a manufactured pocket dimension, accessible only through carefully controlled wormholes. From the outside, it looked like a soap bubble of reality floating in true void, not empty space but the actual nothingness between dimensions. Inside it was paradise for physicists. Laboratories stretched in impossible directions, playing with geometries that existed only in mathematics. Gravity could be adjusted in each section independently, from zero to crushing. Time itself ran at different rates in different wings of the station. And at its heart was the Grand Observatory, where beings from across the galaxy studied the fundamental forces of reality. Lyra was met by Dr. Thren Vokaris, the Nexus director, a four-armed Quellan with cybernetic enhancements that let her perceive dimensions humans couldn't see. "Miss Kasdan," Vokaris said, her voice warm despite her alien physiology. "Welcome to the Nexus. We've been anticipating your arrival with great interest." "And probably some skepticism," Lyra added with a smile. Vokaris laughed. "Indeed. Many of our researchers still struggle to understand how you defeated Velkos using what they consider primitive methods. They're eager to learn, or to prove it was luck." "Where's Dr. Kalen?" "Commander Zephania said he'd be here. Waiting in Laboratory 7 with Velkos." Lyra stopped walking. "Velkos is here?" "He requested assignment to the Nexus immediately after the trial. Said he had much to learn." Vokaris's expression was unreadable. "Your victory affected him profoundly." They arrived at Laboratory 7, a vast chamber where gravity could be manipulated with precision. Kalen was there, along with Velkos and 3 other researchers, 2 Krevthar and 1 human woman Lyra didn't recognize. "Lyra," Kalen called out, gesturing excitedly. "Come see what we've discovered." In the center of the lab was a gravitational test field, similar to smaller versions Lyra had trained with. But this one was different. It had both Krevthar technology and human-designed elements integrated together. The human woman stepped forward. "I'm Dr. Senna Quaid, quantum physicist. Dr. Frost and Champion Velkos have been working on something revolutionary." Velkos's crystalline form pulsed with soft light. "Miss Kasdan, your demonstration at the trial showed me that technological superiority isn't the same as deep understanding. I have proposed a collaboration." "What kind of collaboration?" Kalen could barely contain his excitement. "We're combining Krevthar gravitational manipulation technology with human intuitive modeling. The Krevthar can create precise gravity fields, but they do it through calculation and force. You showed us that understanding the natural flow and patterns of gravity can achieve results they couldn't. So we're going to teach computers to play marbles?" Lyra asked. "In a sense, yes," Dr. Quaid said. "We're developing an AI that combines computational power with pattern recognition algorithms based on your techniques. It could revolutionize everything from space navigation to energy generation." Lyra walked around the test field, studying it. She could see the Krevthar precision in the field generators, but also something new: randomness, variation, the kind of chaos that made marble games interesting. "Show me what you've got so far," she said. Velkos activated the field. A small probe entered and began navigating through a complex gravitational maze. It moved well, better than most of the competitors at the trial had, but something was off. "It's too rigid," Lyra observed. "It's following rules, but it's not adapting. Watch." She pulled out Earth's Eye and threw it into the same field. Her marble danced through the maze, taking a completely different path than the probe. Where the probe had calculated the most efficient route, Earth's Eye found the most elegant one, using momentum and gravity wells to accelerate through sections the probe had crept through carefully. "You see," Lyra said. "The probe is trying to control every moment of its journey. My marble is letting the field do the work." Dr. Quaid was frantically taking notes. "The energy efficiency difference is incredible. Your marble used 40% less energy to navigate the same course. Because it worked with the field instead of fighting it," Lyra explained. She turned to Velkos. "Your people have amazing technology. But I think you developed it so well that you forgot why gravity works the way it does. You can force it to do what you want, but that costs energy. If you understand it, really understand it, you can make it want to do what you want." "Anthropomorphizing gravity," one of the other Krevthar scientists said dismissively. "Maybe," Lyra agreed. "But anthropomorphizing is just pattern recognition applied to forces. And pattern recognition is what got humans to space in the first place." Over the next hours they worked together. Velkos would create gravitational scenarios, and Lyra would show them the intuitive solutions she saw. Kalen and Dr. Quaid would then work to quantify those intuitions, turning Lyra's feel for gravity into algorithms that could be taught and replicated. It was hard work. Several times, Lyra struggled to explain why she knew something would work. It just felt right. But Velkos surprised her. Instead of dismissing these moments, he became fascinated by them. "This is what we lost," he said during one session. "The ability to trust understanding that comes from experience rather than calculation. We Krevthar live so long and rely so heavily on technology that we've forgotten the value of intuition." "Intuition is just pattern recognition," Dr. Quaid offered. "Your subconscious processing millions of data points faster than your conscious mind can calculate." "Call it what you want," Lyra said. "But I've been playing with gravity since I was a kid. Every marble I've thrown, every game I've played, it all taught me something. That's a kind of data collection too." Dr. Vokaris appeared in the doorway. "Miss Kasdan, there's a delegation here to see you. From the Youth Mari." Nexus flowed into the laboratory, their mercury-like form rippling with what Lyra had learned to recognize as excitement. "Lyra Kasdan," Nexus said. "My people wish to learn your methods. We have observed that our flexibility in form gives us advantages in certain gravitational scenarios, but we lack your intuitive grasp. Will you teach us?" Before Lyra could answer, more visitors arrived. The Quellan, the Tetraxians, even some species she didn't recognize. All wanted to learn. Within days, Laboratory 7 had become an impromptu classroom. Lyra found herself teaching alien physicists to play marbles. It was absurd and wonderful. "Feel the weight," she'd say, placing a marble in the appendage, tendril, or energy field of whatever being she was teaching. "Mass isn't just a number, it's a relationship with gravity. The heavier the marble, the more it wants to fall, but also the more momentum it carries. You can feel that even if you can't calculate it." Some got it immediately. Others struggled. But gradually, she saw understanding dawn in beings who had spent centuries studying gravity purely through mathematics. The breakthrough came 2 months after Lyra's arrival. Dr. Quaid burst into the cafeteria where Lyra was eating, still getting used to the Nexus's zero-G dining. "Lyra, we did it." The AI successfully navigated the Tyrell Maze. The Tyrell Maze was a legendary test course, a three-dimensional gravitational labyrinth that had never been fully completed. The record was 87% completion before the probe was destroyed. "How much did the AI complete?" Lyra asked. 100%. In half the time of the previous record. And it used gravitational slingshots and momentum transfers that we never programmed into it. It learned from your techniques and adapted them. Lyra felt a surge of pride, followed by a twinge of concern. "Dr. Quaid, what are we building here?" The physicist sat down, her expression becoming serious. "That's a good question. We're creating something that combines computational power with intuitive understanding. It could revolutionize space travel, make gravity manipulation accessible to species that don't have Krevthar technology, solve energy crises. Or become a weapon," Lyra finished quietly. "Or become a weapon," Dr. Quaid confirmed. "That's why Director Vokaris wants to meet with you, me, Velkos, and the Nexus Council. Tomorrow. To decide what we do with this research." The Council's dilemma. The Nexus Council chamber existed in a space where time moved differently. An hour inside was merely minutes outside, allowing for lengthy deliberations without disrupting the station's research schedule. Lyra found it disorienting, like moving through honey. The council consisted of representatives from 23 species, each one a leading expert in their field. Director Vokaris chaired the meeting. We gather to discuss the Kasdan-Velkos Gravitational Integration Project, Vokaris announced. Miss Kasdan, if you would present your concerns. Lyra stood, feeling the weight of dozens of alien eyes upon her. 3 months ago I came here because I won a marble game. Now we've created an AI that can manipulate gravity better than most species in the galaxy. That's a lot of responsibility. She pulled up a holographic display showing the AI's achievements. This system can navigate impossible gravitational fields. It can find paths through spacetime that we didn't know existed. It can generate energy from gravitational gradients with 90% efficiency. These are all amazing things. The display changed, showing military applications. It can also calculate optimal trajectories for weapons. It can destabilize gravitational fields around planets. It can turn stars into weapons. Silence filled the chamber. A council member from the Krevdar, High Researcher Thexvar, spoke. Any technology can be weaponized. Should we abandon all advancement out of fear? No, Lyra said. But we should be honest about what we're creating. We're not just making a tool. We're making a new way of thinking about gravity. And that's going to change everything. Velkos rose to stand beside Lyra. Miss Kasdan taught me that I had forgotten how to truly understand gravity. In doing so, she showed me that my people had taken the easy path. We use technology to force reality to bend to our will, rather than understanding how to work with reality. He looked around the chamber. This research threatens my species' technological dominance. The Krevdar have built our civilization on being the masters of gravity. If this knowledge spreads, we lose that advantage. And yet you support the project? Thexvar asked. I do. Because Miss Kasdan also taught me that hoarding knowledge is how you stagnate. The universe is vast and complex. No single species, no matter how advanced, can understand all of it alone. We need collaboration. Dr. Kalin stepped forward. If I may offer a perspective, humanity didn't develop this intuitive understanding of gravity through any special genius. We developed it through play. Through games. Through children throwing balls and rolling marbles for thousands of years. That knowledge was always there. Lyra just recognized its value. And that, said Nexus, flowing forward, is the key insight. This is not new knowledge. It is old knowledge, forgotten or dismissed. Every species that has ever played, that has ever experimented with motion and mass, has touched upon these truths. We have simply formalized them. A small, crystalline being that Lyra didn't recognize spoke in a high, chiming voice. I represent the Shirtal Collective. We are a young species only recently achieving spaceflight. Without access to Krevdar technology, we have struggled with gravity manipulation. This research could transform our civilization. Or endanger it, another council member countered. If this technology falls into the wrong hands. It won't fall into anyone's hands, Lyra interrupted. Because we're not going to treat it as technology. We're going to treat it as education. The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Director Vokaris called for order. Explain, Miss Kasdan. Lyra took a deep breath. We don't lock this away or sell it or control it. We teach it. We create a curriculum, games, exercises, training programs, that any species can use to develop gravitational intuition. We make it free and open. Just like children learn physics through play, any civilization can learn this. That's madness, Thexvar said. You would give away knowledge worth trillions. I would give away understanding worth more than that, Lyra replied. Because here's the thing, I don't think this creates a weapon. I think it creates billions of people who understand gravity well enough that they'll find better uses for it than warfare. Dr. Quaid nodded enthusiastically. She's right. Every civilization that develops better understanding of fundamental forces tends to find peaceful applications more valuable than military ones. It's hard to justify using gravity as a weapon when you realize it could solve your energy crisis instead. Velkos added his support. The Krevdar maintained our dominance through secrecy. It made us powerful but isolated. I would rather see my people join a galaxy of equals than rule a galaxy of dependence. The debate raged for hours, council time which translated to minutes in the outside world but felt like days to those inside. Species worried about security, about economic disruption, about the unknown consequences of spreading such knowledge. Finally, a vote was called. When the results came in, Lyra held her breath. 15-8. The council voted to approve the Kasdan-Velkos Gravitational Integration Project as an open educational initiative. Director Vokaris stood. The Void Nexus will develop and freely distribute a comprehensive curriculum in gravitational intuition. All species are invited to participate in its development and dissemination. As the chamber emptied, Lyra found herself standing alone with Velkos and Director Vokaris. "You just changed the galaxy," Vokaris said quietly. "I hope you understand that." "I changed how the galaxy thinks about gravity," Lyra corrected. "Whether that changes the galaxy itself, we'll see." Velkos's crystalline form pulsed with warm light. "In my 6 centuries I have witnessed many technological revolutions. This feels different. This feels like a revolution of understanding." "That's all I ever wanted," Lyra said. "To help people understand that gravity isn't just forces and formulas. It's something you can feel, something you can dance with, something you can play with." "Speaking of dancing," Vokari said with what might have been a smile, "we've received a request from Earth. They want to formalize marble drift as an official sport in the Galactic Games." Lyra laughed. "Now that's how you spread understanding, turn it into a game that everyone wants to play." Over the next months, the gravitational intuition curriculum took shape. It started with simple exercises, feeling the weight of different objects, predicting trajectories, understanding momentum. Then it progressed to more complex scenarios, always emphasizing hands-on experimentation and play over pure calculation. Species approached it differently. The fluid youth Mari excelled at exercises involving continuous motion. The multi-armed Quellen could juggle multiple objects while feeling each one's interaction with gravity. The energy-based consortium beings learned to perceive gravity as patterns in space itself. And everywhere beings played with marbles. Lyra traveled across the galaxy, visiting worlds to help establish training centers. On each world, she saw the same transformation. Scientists and students who had only known gravity as equations suddenly grasping it as something real and tangible. But the most profound changes came from unexpected places. On the Krevdar homeworld, young Krevdar began questioning their society's reliance on technology. "Why use a device to manipulate gravity when we can learn to understand it?" they asked. It started a cultural revolution that would reshape Krevdar civilization for generations. On Earth, marble drift became the fastest-growing sport in history. But more than that, schools began teaching physics through play again, and test scores in STEM fields skyrocketed. And in the most isolationist corners of the galaxy, species that had never trusted their neighbors began to reach out, united by a common language of play and discovery. Lyra returned to the Nexus 1 year after her victory at the Convergence Arena. She found Laboratory 7 transformed into a massive research hub where hundreds of species worked together on gravitational projects. Dr. Kalin met her with exciting news. "Lyra, we've had a breakthrough. Using the intuitive principles you taught us, we've developed a new kind of starship drive. It doesn't fight gravity, it surfs gravitational waves between stars. It's 300% more efficient than current drives and produces zero exotic particle emissions." "And it's being shared freely?" Lyra asked. "Published in every major scientific journal, taught in the curriculum, available to anyone who wants to build it." Lyra smiled. "Good. That's what all this was supposed to be about." That evening she stood in the Grand Observatory looking out at the galaxy. Velkos joined her, his presence no longer intimidating but comfortable. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "You could have kept this knowledge, become wealthy and powerful." "I play marble games," Lyra said simply. "Marble games are more fun when other people play them with you. Same principle applies to understanding the universe. A simple philosophy for a complex problem. Maybe. But sometimes simple is better." She pulled out Earth's eye, the marble that had started everything. "This is just glass and air and gravity. But it taught me more about physics than any textbook. Because I could hold it, throw it, watch it move. I could play with it." Velkos was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "My people have begun teaching our children to play before we teach them to calculate. For the first time in our history. Because of you." "Not because of me," Lyra corrected. "Because you remembered that understanding comes before control. I just reminded you." As they watched the stars, Lyra thought about how far she'd come. A college dropout who'd failed at everything except playing with marbles had changed how the galaxy understood one of the fundamental forces of reality. But she'd done it by doing the simplest thing imaginable: she'd played. And she'd invited everyone else to play too. The legacy. 5 years after the Great Gravitational Trial, Commander Zephania Cross stood in the newly constructed Kasdan Institute on Earth, watching the opening ceremony. The institute was a collaboration between humanity and 47 other species. A school dedicated to teaching physics through play and intuitive understanding. Lyra Kasdan, now officially Professor Kasdan though she still insisted everyone call her Lyra, stood at a podium in front of thousands of beings from across the galaxy. When I was 7 years old, Lyra began, my father took me to the gravity gardens on Mars. I spent 6 hours just throwing things and watching them move. The scientists there told my dad I was wasting my time, that I should be learning formulas and equations instead. She smiled. Those scientists were wrong. I was learning formulas and equations, I just didn't know it yet. Every throw taught me about parabolas. Every spin showed me angular momentum. Every bounce demonstrated energy conservation. I was doing physics, I was just doing it through play. On the massive screens behind her, footage played of children from dozens of species, all playing with marbles, balls, and various objects in different gravitational environments. The Kasdan Institute isn't about teaching you to be like me, Lyra continued. It's about teaching you to be like you were when you were young, curious, experimental, unafraid to try things and see what happens. We're going to play with physics until we understand it in our bones, not just our brains. In the audience, Velkos sat with a delegation of Krevthar students, the first generation of his species to attend an institution that valued intuition as much as calculation. Beside them, Nexus had brought a group of young youth Mari who had already made breakthroughs in fluid dynamics by approaching problems as games rather than equations. The ceremony concluded with a demonstration. Lyra and her most advanced students, representing 12 different species, performed a synchronized gravitational ballet. Using nothing but marbles, understanding, and the Institute's adjustable gravity fields, they created patterns of motion that looked like art but demonstrated complex physics principles. A human child sent a marble through a triple-loop gravity well. A young Krevthar manipulated local spacetime to make two marbles orbit each other. A youth Mari student created a cascading fountain of metallic spheres that defied what observers thought possible. When it ended, the applause was thunderous. Later that evening, Lyra found herself in her office, a comfortable space with windows overlooking the Institute's practice fields. She was reviewing applications from potential students when someone knocked. "Come in." Darius Venn, now a captain in the Terran Diplomatic Corps, entered with a smile. "Professor Kasdan. How does it feel to be running the most popular educational institution in the galaxy?" Lyra laughed. "Terrifying and wonderful. We have a waiting list of over 2 million students. 2 million. And we can only take 5,000 per year. You could expand. We are expanding. 23 new campuses opening next year across the galaxy. Each one will teach the same philosophy, play first, calculate later." Darius sat down, his expression becoming more serious. "You know, there's been some pushback. The traditional physics institutions claim you're teaching soft science, that intuition can't replace rigorous mathematical training." "They're right," Lyra said, surprising him. "Intuition can't replace mathematical rigor. But it can complement it. The best physicists are the ones who can both feel the physics and calculate it. That's what we're teaching here, the marriage of intuition and analysis." She pulled up a holographic display showing comparative data. Students who go through our program before advanced physics training outperform traditionally trained students by 40% on complex problem solving. Because they're not just running numbers, they're understanding what the numbers mean. The hard science people won't like that. Then they can keep teaching the old way. We'll keep teaching ours. And in a generation, we'll see whose students make the better discoveries. Darius smiled. "Still competitive, I see. Always. But now I'm competing to make the best physicists, not to win marble games." She paused. "Well, I'm still competing to win marble games too. Did you hear about the Galactic Championship next month?" "You're not seriously entering." "Why not? I'm the reigning champion. Gotta defend my title." They both laughed. As Darius left, Lyra turned back to her windows, watching students practice in the low-gravity fields outside. A message arrived on her console. It was from Dr. Senna Quaid at the Void Nexus. "Lyra, we've had another breakthrough. The Kasdan Velkos AI has predicted the existence of a new type of gravitational wave. If we're right, it could allow FTL communication for the first time. We're calling it Kasdan Resonance. Thought you should know. Senna." Lyra read the message twice, then sat back in her chair. Faster than light communication. If it worked, it would change everything. The galaxy would become smaller, more connected. All because she'd taught an AI to play marbles. Her console chimed again. This time it was a video call from Velkos. "Lyra," the Krevthar said, his crystalline form now familiar and friendly. "I'm calling with good news. The Krevthar Council has officially adopted the gravitational intuition curriculum as mandatory education for all our youth. They're calling it the Kasdan Revolution." Please don't call it that, Lyra said. It's not a revolution. It's just remembering how to play. Perhaps. But sometimes remembering is revolutionary. Velkos paused. There's something else. We want to commission a monument. At the Convergence Arena. A statue depicting the moment you threw Earth's eye into the spiral. To inspire future generations. Lyra felt her eyes water. Velkos, I don't need a statue. It's not for you. It's for the children who will see it and think, I want to understand the universe like that. It's for the scientists who will remember that technology serves understanding, not the other way around. It's for my people to remind us that wisdom sometimes comes from the young, the playful, the ones we dismissed. When you put it that way, okay. But can we make it a fountain instead? Where water droplets fall and curve in interesting gravity patterns. Velkos's laughter sounded like music. Perfect. That's exactly the kind of thinking that changed the galaxy. After the call ended, Lyra walked out onto the Institute's main balcony. Below, hundreds of students from dozens of species were playing, experimenting, learning. The sound of their excitement drifted up. Laughter, friendly arguments about physics, the clink of marbles and the whoosh of objects moving through gravity fields. Commander Zephania joined her on the balcony. Impressive, isn't it? The commander said. 5 years ago you were a dropout with no prospects. Now you're changing galactic civilization. I'm teaching marble games, Lyra corrected with a smile. The galaxy is changing itself. Because you showed them how. Lyra thought about that. About the Convergence Arena and the spiral and the mirror. About Velkos and Nexus and all the beings who had learned to see gravity differently. About the children below who were growing up in a galaxy where understanding was valued as much as technology. I showed them that play isn't frivolous, she finally said. That the universe is big and complex and terrifying, but it's also beautiful and fun and worth dancing with. Every child who's ever thrown a ball knew that. Every adult who's calculated trajectories without feeling them forgot it. I just reminded everyone. The Marble Gambit, Zephania said. What? That's what they're calling it in the history books. The Marble Gambit, why humans play with gravity. Your victory at the trial, the cultural shift it caused, the Kasdan Institute. All of it. Lyra laughed. That's a terrible title. It's accurate though. You gambled that play could beat power. That understanding could beat technology. That 7 marbles could change the galaxy. I never thought of it as a gamble. I just thought of it as playing the best game I could. Below, a young human student sent a marble through an impossible series of gravitational loops, and the watching students erupted in cheers. The student was crying happy tears, overwhelmed by the beauty of what they'd just accomplished. Lyra remembered that feeling. The pure joy of understanding how something moved, of predicting the unpredictable, of dancing with forces that could crush planets but could also be guided by glass and intuition. You know what the best part is? Lyra said to Zephania. In a generation what I did won't seem special. It'll be normal. Every physicist will think this way. Every student will learn this way. And they'll look back at us and wonder why we ever thought it was revolutionary to play with physics. That's the goal? That's the goal. To make play-based learning so normal that no one remembers it was ever controversial. To make gravitational intuition as common as knowing how to throw a ball. To make the galaxy a place where curiosity and experimentation are celebrated, not dismissed. Zephania smiled. You're going to succeed. You know that, right? Lyra pulled out Earth's eye, the marble that had started everything. It caught the light from Earth's sun, refracting it into a tiny rainbow in her palm. Maybe, she said. But success isn't the point. The point is to play. To keep playing, to keep learning, to keep showing people that the universe is something to dance with, not something to fear or fight or force into submission. She tossed Earth's eye into the air, and it hung there for a perfect moment, suspended between rising and falling, held only by gravity and the initial force of her throw. Then it dropped and she caught it smoothly. That's the real lesson, Lyra said. Everything rises and everything falls. But in between, if you understand the forces, if you can feel the patterns, if you're willing to play, you can make anything dance. Far across the galaxy, on 47 worlds and 300 space stations, children of every species were throwing marbles, learning physics and preparing to change the universe. And somewhere in the void between stars, a naked singularity orbited by the ghost of a neutron star fragment stood as a monument to a simple truth, that sometimes the smallest force, applied with perfect understanding at exactly the right moment, could move anything, even the galaxy itself.